Bitdefender has a new MSP program. Breach Secure Now's SMB security as a service solution. inSOC hits the scene with Turnkey Security. A new list of must-reads from the ChannelPro Book Club. Opportunities for next-gen markets and more. It's ChannelPro Weekly, episode 109, Deep Insurance. Hello, everyone, and welcome to ChannelPro Weekly, episode 109. My name is Matt Whitlock, technology editor, online director, and captain of this patriotic ship barreling its way through the ITCs of the world. Joining me each and every week is our co-captain, the guy who swabs the decks, executive editor Rich Friedman. Hello, Swabby.
Hey there.
How's it going? It's
going pretty good.
So
I got these decks squeaky clean, my friend.
You know what? We got to have squeaky clean decks. They should be polished and shined and all that jazz. So this is kind of a 4th of July special edition. We're getting ready to celebrate with fireworks and all that kind of stuff. And who would have guessed, Rich, after so long, we would be at show 109. It seems like it's a milestone, but really 109 is not much of a milestone.
Well, I don't know. It feels good though.
It does feel good. We can say that there's going to be fireworks to celebrate our show. Indeed. Episode 109. So yeah, so that's coming up. Hope all of our listeners have some good plans for that and are going to be enjoying the time off. It seems like most places, realizing that the 4th was on a Thursday, decided to give people Friday off too. At least that happened for us, and that's happened for lots of people that I've talked to.
Same here. I've run into a lot of people who are getting Friday off as well. So it's nice. It's a fluke of the calendar that the 4th of July happens to be a Thursday this year, but it works out very nicely for everybody.
So I think going forward, we need to make sure that all holidays fall on a Thursday. How can we do that?
Yeah, or a Tuesday, I suppose, works just as well.
A Tuesday would also be pretty good. Yeah, because you don't want to have like just one day kind of right on a weekend. So it seems like all holidays need to fall on Tuesday or Thursday.
Yep.
Those are the days. I like that. Let's start lobbying the government to start moving holidays around every year.
Right.
To accommodate our long weekend schedule. So for our listeners who are watching live and or catching up on the back catalog that finally made its way out last week. Every show we are up to date, Rich. Every show is now cut and out there. How does that make you feel?
It's great, actually. It's really nice to be all caught up, to have all those sort of issues behind us, and we are ready for a nice long steady run again on ChannelPro Weekly.
Yeah, I am glad too. It was a long time coming. There's a lot of work getting all that stuff out there, and so let me talk to you, listeners. So if you are facing a daunting back catalog, because we put like 10 episodes out at once, and some of those are like the end of last year or like February this year. The news in those is going to be a little dated, but we do talk a lot about more than the news. So and we have a lot of really great interviews back in there. A couple in particular, the interview with Terry Hedden. So look through your list and look for where we interviewed Terry Hedden. That was a really great show. Rich, who else we had one other really good interview in there. Do you remember who?
I'm trying to remember. I know we had Ed Correa on the show. He was great.
Ed. Yeah, I was gonna go back and look here.
Did we have Herman Poole? We did. Herman was one of the first people to join us on video. He was really good. Herman was a great one, and we have a really good one, episode 104 with Dave Seibert. Yep.
That was the one I was trying to think of. Yeah, lots of great interviews. So definitely go back and check some of those out. You can kind of, if you've already heard the news, just kind of skip forward a little bit. But there's lots of other really great stuff in there to listen to. And of course, our sincerest apologies for the delay in delivering said episodes to you. We've got a nice system in place now where as soon as we record, wheels start turning and episodes go up within ideally a day. Now, tomorrow's the 4th, so it may be the 5th when this particular show goes up. But I'm real excited about having a more regular schedule.
Yeah, and if I'm not mistaken, episode 108 went up in a flash.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. As soon as, well, I mean, actually, it was a little bit delayed because we recorded that 2 weeks ago because we didn't actually record last week. Mostly because I was sick, and as you can tell by this, if you can hear my sinuses in the microphone, I'm still not 100% cured of this lovely summer cold that my son decided to share with me. But that was more kind of my fault, I guess, because I didn't tell him that we recorded. So like now when we're done recording every episode, I'm going to tell him that we have a show ready, and then he's going to go do his thing. I didn't actually tell him that, but as soon as I did tell him that, we got it back like in a day. So it was great. So it seemed like we recorded last week, but we really didn't. But with all the other content out, it doesn't matter because there's so much back catalog to listen to. People are on ChannelPro Weekly overload.
Yeah.
So yeah, good stuff. So I was looking back at notes to see who the interviewees were. So I know this show we've got. We don't have a ton of news, but we do have some shameless plugs, and we can talk about the July issue, I think, which is coming out. I don't see that on the notes. We should probably preview the July issue because that should be hitting next week, right?
Yeah, you'll start seeing content probably go up on the website next week. Is correct.
Now, is July a print one or a digital one?
Digital.
Okay, so that's what will be available next week, I would assume, right?
Sorry, say again.
That the digital issue will be out next week.
So the articles that appear in the July issue will start flowing onto the website next week. I'm not positive that the entire digital download of July will go up next week. It might be the week after that, but that'll be coming online soon.
Okay. All right. Good. But we can preview a couple things. I think that might be fun. We can talk about best 4th of July fireworks shows you've ever seen. You can talk about your childhood and fireworks events in the greater Seattle area. Well, you didn't grow up in Seattle, though, did you?
I was going to say, yeah.
No, yeah, you didn't grow up in Seattle. You grew up in New York.
In New York until age 11, and then Los Angeles. Yeah. So
we can talk about New York fireworks shows because I bet that they put on a pretty decent show, especially back in those days, which wasn't all that long ago, but it seems like it was a long time ago.
Yeah, well, I mean, so I mostly when I was living in New York, it was mostly in the burbs and the suburbs around New York City. In fact, in a community, most of that time was spent in a community called Yorktown Heights, New York, which, believe it or not, it's like when I was living there were maybe 30,000 people in that town, and that is where our friend Ed Manna lives. What are the odds?
Yeah.
So it was more of a smallish town kind of experience, but great, actually really good fireworks given the size of the city. And so the 4th is one of those holidays where it is actually nice to get out. I enjoy big, dense, urban. I'm a city guy, but the 4th of July is one of those holidays when it's nice to get out of the city into smaller towns. I think that's where the better celebrations are a lot.
Poplar Grove misses you, Rich.
What was that?
I said Poplar Grove misses you.
Yeah, well, hey, I miss Poplar Grove. Are there fireworks in Poplar Grove, or do you go nearby somewhere?
They have a small show that they do as part of our Neighbors Night Festival. That's already passed. That was when I had to take that trip to Missouri to see some extended family. So I missed that, but there's lots of other little towns around here that do shows. So there's ample opportunity to see fireworks around here. There's not like one big, if you want to go like downtown or go to like one of the bigger suburbs like Schaumburg, they have, these massive municipal shows that they put on. But around here, there's smaller municipal shows. There's actually a town nearby that's called Freeport. Or was it Kirkland? I think it was Kirkland. One of these small towns. They actually put on a gigantic fireworks show. I think that's like they save all their money all year long, and that's what they do. And that was a pretty good show. But there's like a local small baseball team. They'll have fireworks, lots of that kind of stuff. So it's fun. But I will tell you my fireworks story. So when I was growing up, I grew up not in Illinois. My first 7 or 8 years of life was just outside of Minneapolis. So I remember that in the house that we had, it was kind of like a split level. So we could very easily get to the roof from the deck. And we were just, our house happened to be in a good spot where we could get up right on top of the roof, look right over the peak. And like, there was like the Minneapolis fireworks. Awesome. So I remember, I have very fond memories of going up on top of the roof with my family back in the day and watching the Minneapolis fireworks from the rooftop. So that's kind of my fun little fireworks story that I have fond memories of. But these days though, I'm not really a big fan of fireworks shows. Isn't that weird?
Well, actually, not so weird. I don't know if you want to talk about your last 4th of July, but
yeah, maybe that's what ruined it. Yeah. Long story short, we were assaulted by a completely insane person leaving a fireworks event last year that resulted in arrests and charges and all kinds of fun stuff. So I really don't want to talk about that in too much detail.
No, and no one was injured. But it was a scary incident anyway.
It was free. You know what? Had I been alone, I think that situation would have been very different. But with your kids in the back seat and your wife, and you tend to approach things from a different way. But everyone was fine, thank goodness. Scared the crap out of my kids, though, I will say. But they're tough. They're tough. They'll move on. So anyway, let's get off of fireworks, I guess. Now that I'm reliving my tragic past.
Sorry about that.
I don't know what I'm gonna do. All right, shameless plug: Cybersecurity Online Summit. Rich, tell me about the online summit. I know that's something you're working hard on.
Yeah, there's a lot going on right now, pulling together a lot of really awesome content for folks. So as regular listeners know, we've been doing live and in-person events at ChannelPro for years now. Last year, we started doing virtual events as well, 100% online. And the model basically is you go online and you register for the event, and it's scheduled for a particular day. On that day, you get access to this menu of phenomenal content that we've created for you. You can watch as much of it as you want, whenever you want, in what order you want. There is an opportunity, I believe, typically for an additional fee to retain access to that content after the day of the conference, but that's entirely optional. So the next virtual event that we're doing takes place August 14th. That is our second annual Cybersecurity Online Summit, 100% devoted to the security market and opportunities in security and cybersecurity. So we have got all sorts of great stuff going on. We've got a session on IoT security, sort of edge core IoT security and best practices there. We've got a session I'm really looking forward to featuring 2 security experts, Ian Trump, who spoke at our last cybersecurity event, and Jay Farron, both really, really knowledgeable security experts. And they're going to be giving us a tour of the threat landscape today from a security expert's point of view. And it's trust me, because I've spoken to these guys, it's going to be a scary journey through what the nefarious folks out there have in store for you right now. We will be talking with some of your peers. Our own Colleen Fry will be doing one-to-one interviews with some channel pros who have cybersecurity practices in place now, and they'll be kind of sharing some best practices in terms of how they got their business off the ground, how they run it, how they price things, how they market things, et cetera. We will have a similar sort of session about that from Joshua Lieberman, of Net Sciences in Albuquerque. He's been a guest host on the podcast before, and he has this great presentation he's pulled together in terms of his experiences delivering cybersecurity. All sorts of other great stuff. It's a nice, big, rich set of resources for you to to choose from. And all you got to do is go to events.channelpronetwork.com and sign up and show up on August 14th, and it's all there for you.
Yeah, awesome. I'm gonna go to the chat here. If you're watching live, I'm gonna put the link to the show notes right here. Or that's to the show notes. Sorry, the link to the events page. And I got to turn that down because I don't want to listen to myself. Not because I'm horrible to listen to, Rich, just because it's really weird when you're listening to yourself on a delay.
Yeah.
That could have came out wrong. Okay, so I put a link there. Hey, also, if you are watching live, which I encourage you to do, we would love to start getting a few people here watching us, which we never expected a gigantic audience of live viewers. But if you want to be a part of the show, what a great opportunity to ask questions, give your insight, and actually be a part of the show. We'll be monitoring the chats, and we'll absolutely call out things that you say and have you be a part of the show. Wouldn't that be fun, Rich?
It would.
It would be fun.
Genuine interactiveness.
Yes.
Interactivity.
Yes. Interactive TV. Not only can you watch people on a screen, you can interact with them too. Pretty amazing stuff. This newfangled technologies that we have. But Rich, if you thought that the shameless plugs were over, you would be mistaken, because we are also going to talk about the 2019 ChannelPro All-Stars nomination. Now we've talked about the All-Star. Pardon me, folks, if I sound a little hoarse. I'm still getting over that nasty cold, so I apologize. You might hear me clear my throat or sound like I'm dying every few minutes. That's fine. We've talked a lot about the All-Stars nomination, a lot about the All-Stars awards.
Yeah.
So I don't think we need to dive too deep into it, but why don't we give people a brief overview of what the All-Stars is and what this nomination process is about?
Yeah, just quickly, because we would like to get folks involved in this too. And so every year, ChannelPro hands out our All-Star Awards. And the idea basically is we call attention to, we recognize a relatively short list of vendors and membership organizations out there that have done something specific and concrete in the prior 12 months that had a significant impact on the SMB channel. So we're not just looking for a company that is really great to partner with and is really supportive of its resellers, et cetera. We're looking for some product launch, a partner program revision, an initiative of some kind or another that happened within the last 12 months and was really sort of notable and significant in one way or another. The final selections for the All-Stars list are made by the editorial team here at ChannelPro, and so that's Matt and me and Colleen Fry, who we mentioned before. But we do very much encourage people to send in input, send in suggestions. Are there vendors out there who did something really kind of noteworthy in the last 12 months who you think deserve recognition as an All-Star? If so, you will find a nomination form on our homepage, channelpronetwork.com, and you can go in there and you can tell us about it. And we absolutely check out all the nominations we get very carefully.
Oh, sorry, I think I lost sound there for a second.
Just for a few seconds there.
And Hammy decided to go take a flight here on top of my head. All right, hopefully he stays. Yeah, I was trying to put screen share the All-Stars nomination form, but yeah, the significant thing that you pointed out there, Rich, is that these are not just companies that are good companies.
Right.
These are companies that are, there we go. People should see the form now. These are companies that have done something significant in the last year. Right, in the last year. So not that Dell is a great company and they make a lot of great things, but they've had to have done something that is noteworthy, notable, industry changing, industry impacting, life impacting, whatever, in the last 12 months. So there's got to be a reason. That was what I think the important thing we got to point out, right?
Exactly. You know what? And Dell, I don't know if they're going to be on the list or not, but perfectly good example. So if somebody was to come to us and say, hey, Dell should be on the list because I love working with my partner account manager and I love their hardware, it's like, that's not really what we're looking for. But they have made a real emphasis in the last 12 months on being simple to do business with. And they can, I know all this is coming to mind because right before we recorded this, I was on the phone with one of their senior partner program executives and reminded of some of this stuff. They've really put an emphasis on being easy to do business with, and they've made some significant headway in terms of things like, getting back to you on quotes inside of 24 hours and something like that. If you are a Dell partner and your business has really been impacted in a positive way by that particular effort on their part, that's a great example of the kind of thing that you could nominate them for.
Yeah, indeed. Cool. So I would put a link to that in the chat. So make sure that if you have a company in mind that you do business with that has changed or impacted your business in a positive way, put something out that you think is notable or noteworthy. We definitely encourage you to nominate them. We will look at all of them. We will seriously consider all of them. Please consider putting in your an email address that we can contact you. So if we have questions about what you're trying to say, or if we need a little bit more detail to consider, we'd like to be able to reach out to you if possible. If not, that's okay too. But put your nomination in there. We'll absolutely look into it, and we will consider it in our gigantic Nerf war, beating each other senseless over the head arguments that we do, which will start probably Rich, in a few months?
Oh, sooner than that. Actually, I off the top of my head, I don't know when the timing is on that, but this will be our cover story for the October issue. And one of the things I need to do in the next week or two is create an editorial plan for that issue. So I mean, we're talking weeks away now before you and I and Colleen will need to start talking about this.
Oh, right. In the past, this has been like December or January, so we pushed it up.
Right, exactly.
I thought we had more time. So the beatdowns are happening sooner than later.
That's right.
Well, good. I got some of my picks that I'm ready to fight for, and I'm sure you have some of your own. But we would absolutely love to get some suggestions from our audience. And it's also important to note too, there is not any set number, right? I don't know if you mentioned that or not, but there does not have to be 20. There does not have to be 10. There does not have to be 38. It really. It could be as little as 3. It could be as little as 0. If we really determined that no company did anything significant in the last year, we could have 0. I don't think that would ever happen. But it's technically possible, right, Rich?
Absolutely. There's a quality bar that a vendor has to clear. And if nobody cleared it in a given 12 months period, as unlikely as that is, no all-stars.
Right. So that would be just 2 blank pages of the magazine. Like, here's your all-star list. And it's just like the big middle finger or something. Like, how would we run that?
Yeah, I don't know. That's a good point. Yeah, it would be an interesting article to write. Why were there no all-stars?
Why were there no? Yeah, sorry. Try again next year.
Yeah.
No. Yeah. I mean, I'm sure there will be some.
Yes.
Usually, it's not hard to come up with at least 5 to 10. Obvious ones that we've seen throughout the year,
right?
But we would love to consider anything, and it's really hard to monitor every single vendor that works with the channel. We try, but it's really hard to do that, and we may not see something as significant as you do because you work with these companies day in and day out, and something that they've done to a program that may not be significant to us or that we would view as significant might have radically impacted your life. And we would absolutely want to hear and consider those stories.
Yep, absolutely. Please.
Good. Rich is nodding his head. Yes, that is what we want. Good. All right. So that's the All-Stars, and that'll be fun to look at. Now, do you want to dive into news or do we want to preview the July issue?
Well, I'll say just a few quick words maybe about the July issue. We don't have to dive into that in any great depth, especially because we'll wind up talking about some of this stuff in the coming next few episodes as these pieces start appearing on the website. But we've got a cover story there that is part of a series we're doing this year that we're calling Profit Fuel. And we're sort of profiling different service practices, different business opportunities that somebody who is focused chiefly today on, the traditional kind of network and endpoint management service business. What are some of the things that you could maybe add to that business that are really going to help you add some more profit, take your business to the next level? And the cover story for our July issue was about CRM and ERP applications, which is something that I really encourage people to be thinking about. I encourage people to read this article. I also encourage them to be thinking about CRM and ERP, with Salesforce and NetSuite and companies like that out there, Dynamics on the Microsoft side. And these businesses are growing at an enormous rate. For Salesforce in particular, the biggest gating factor right now, the biggest hindrance basically to that company's growth is that they don't have enough partners. There are just not enough companies out there who can help their end users deploy the software and really learn how to make use of it. So there's an enormous opportunity. This is very, very sticky, very, very profitable work. And Colleen wrote a great story about this. That'll be our cover article. There will also be a few pages dedicated to something I've been looking forward actually to getting this in the magazine for a while. And this, credit where it's due. I mentioned Ed Correa before. He was a co-host with us on the podcast. This was something based on a suggestion that he made at one point, or an observation really that he made to me, which is just that there has been so much merger and acquisition activity in the vendor world within the last few years. This company buying that company, these two companies merging. It's impossible to keep track of it all. It's like he said, I can't even keep track of who owns who at this point. And he said, you guys should do an article about that. And instead of doing an article, what we did was create sort of a diagram. So there will be this 2-page spread basically devoted to sort of charting, mapping out who owns who, especially in the managed services space right now. We'll talk about that more when it runs online, because there are some, when you actually do the work of pulling that together, as I did some time back, there are some interesting patterns and facts of life in that world that start to become apparent. So that's interesting stuff. And then the other thing, of course, another highlight from the July issue, and I don't know how much detail you want to go into, but July every year is where we run our annual hardware roundup. Which was written by our own Matt Whitlock, and
who's that guy? Who is that guy?
Who is that guy? And why is it that every year he's looking for some sort of offbeat way to present this material? The basic idea with the hardware roundup, the dull, uninteresting idea I came up with some years ago was, hey, Matt, you ought to come up with a list of some products from the last 6-12 months that you think are kind of cool and write about them. And Matt's always kind of looking for a way to make that a little bit more interesting. And I don't know, do you want to share your spin for this year or wait?
We can talk about it a little bit. So what was I think the first hardware roundup I did was just a plain hardware roundup, right?
Might be, yeah.
I mean, that goes back kind of a long way. But what was the one that kicked off this whole, like, I'm going to do it in a weird way? Was it the parade, the hardware parade?
It was the parade, yes.
Yeah. So I don't like to write the same thing over and over again. And a hardware roundup really is kind of the same thing over and over again, just with different hardware. And there's nothing wrong with that. But I did this one hardware roundup where I wrote it. I think Cecilia probably thought I was insane when I turned it in. You probably thought I was insane too. The guys was like, I wrote it as like there was actual hardware on parade, like you're watching a parade, because that's how Cecilia gave me the title. She said do like a parade of hardware. And I know what she meant by that, but I'm like, well, let's take that literally and write it from the sense of two parade, cheesy parade commentators, with like bantering back and forth as they watch this hardware that's like coming down the street on floats. And it was absolutely hysterical. And there was actually a lot of jokes that got cut out of that. Not because of Cecilia, but because of someone else on staff, our copy editor, Colleen, who we love, but who tries to keep me out of trouble making certain jokes. But yeah, so after that, like, it's like, oh, I set this new bar of comedy and of interesting, doing things in a weird way that I had to try to top it each and every year going forward. So we had the parade, and then what other versions did we have? We had
last year it was movie themed, summer blockbuster themed.
Right. Last year I related hardware, recent releases in hardware to recent movies, which actually was hilarious. That was a really great one. But there was another one that we did, I thought, between them.
Yes. 2 years ago, it was a beauty pageant.
Oh, that's right. That's right. Like the Miss America pageant. Yeah, that one was kind of funny too. So this year we'll just preview it and then we'll talk about, because I'm sure we'll talk about this one next week. Yes. But this year I decided that it was time to gather up our ChannelPro readers and take them out on safari. So we're all loaded up into the ChannelPro tour bus, and we are going to go and visit these amazing hardware specimens in the wild. So I'll just maybe leave it at that.
I'll just say it is a lot of fun again. So yeah, when that shows up on the website, as it will at some point in the next 2 to 3 weeks, we can talk about it on the podcast.
Yeah, I have to say my only bummer about this part, and we'll talk about it when we talk about this one. I only had 2 pages, and when you're trying to kind of be a little bit more narrative driven and have some fun with it, you run out of space really quick.
Yeah.
So like, I think previous issues had been, I think, 4 pages, right?
I don't think we've ever gone to 4.
Maybe 3.
We've definitely gone to 3. I mean, they always get budgeted in. Just because this always fits into a particular slot on the issue plan we do every month. And, so it's a 2-page slot. But we've definitely found you an extra page in years past.
Yeah, and I think this one was fun, but we only get to visit, I think, 5 different species on this particular tour bus. Now, and when you're out on safari, that's pretty good. But I wouldn't have mind being able to hit a few more products in this particular one. So if we go out on tour again, which I think we will, because this was fun.
Yeah.
If we ever go out on tour again, we'll try to see if we can get 3 pages so we can be out a little bit longer in the bus.
All right.
All right. So we'll leave it at that. But that was a fun one. Anything else on the July issue you want to preview?
No. Like you said, stuff's going to start showing up soon, and we'll talk about it on the podcast. You'll see it up on our website.
Okay. Awesome. That starts hitting next week. So look forward to that. Rich, if you were Bitdefender and you were going to roll something out the door, what would it be?
It might just be an MSP partner program. And yeah, so this is something actually that they announced a couple of weeks ago. It was in the right in the middle of the DattoCon conference that we spoke about in the last episode. So I didn't actually get a chance to write my coverage and put it up on our website until last week, I believe it was, because there was so much Datto news out of DattoCon, basically. But kind of an interesting and a significant milestone for Bitdefender. They really, just within the last couple of years or so, have made the observation that so many other people have made, which is just that to a great extent, the future of our industry and our market, the SMB market here, really belongs to MSPs and that recurring revenue kind of as a service delivery model. So they really want to, attract as many MSPs as possible and be as great a place as possible for them to do business. They already have thousands of MSPs, in fact, in their channel. So it's not as if this is the first time that they are partnering with MSPs, but it is the first time that they've had a partner program 100% and specifically dedicated to MSPs. And so they've done the things that you would do when you take a conventional partner program and adapt it to the MSP channel in terms of making it easy to get the subscription priced versions of their software that align with the cash flow MSPs are familiar with. And benefits and rewards and discounts and tiers and so on and so forth that are optimized specifically for that MSP channel. So, and the interview I did about that partner program, and the person who more than anyone else at Bitdefender is responsible for designing it is a gentleman named Jason Eberhardt, and he joined the company, I want to say right at the beginning of this year. I met him for the first time at the RSA conference right at the beginning of March, and he was brand new. He didn't even have business cards at that point. And I mean, they brought him on specifically to be the guy in charge of the MSP channel and to build a partner program. And so that too is a sign of the commitment Bitdefender has to the MSP channel right now. And it's a big milestone for them in this ongoing effort on their part.
So it's a 3-tier program, and there's some support stuff in here that I see. How does the program look overall? Did you get a lot of nitty gritty on it, or is it something Bitdefender folks are going to be excited about? Are they not going to be excited about it?
I think Bitdefender partners actually will enjoy. So the impression I get is a lot of what they're doing in this program, they've been doing on a less formalized basis with MSPs before. So you may not see, if you're an existing MSP partner of Bitdefender, you may not see a ton of new benefits and features, but it'll all be sort of pulled together for you and delivered to you in a way that's much easier to consume and understand and so on. I mean, it's essentially, instead of just being this kind of amorphous population of partners in a larger partner network that wasn't really designed for you, you've now got your own hangout, your own place to be, where everything really has been set up specifically for your requirements. So I suspect in a lot of ways, one of the bigger impacts will be just ease of doing business. Essentially, it'll be easier to understand what's available to you and what the certification requirements are for the different tiers, et cetera.
Yeah, and you said that they announced this during DattoCon, right?
Yes, that is correct.
Doesn't it seem like a bad time to announce something? You know what, though? I say that and I think, like, my gosh, there's so many things now. It's like there is never a good day to announce anything, is there?
No, and especially, I mean, if you were to make the mistake of trying to time your news not to coincide with an event, you would never announce news. There are so many events out there right now. It's this endless challenge for especially Joel Zadespinner, our associate publisher, and myself, and we go to a lot of conferences, and just figuring out how to get to all these different shows and which one am I going to go to versus him. So yeah, it's inevitable. Your news is going to overlap with somebody's show. And I'll say this too, DattoCon has gotten bigger than it used to be. As recently as a year or two ago, it for good reason, it probably didn't scare people to announce news on top of DattoCon. But my goodness, it was a big show this year. Just, counting everybody, counting the Datto personnel and the vendors who were exhibiting and everybody, they had just under 3,000 people there. And I mean, that's turned into a landmark event on the calendar. And so we'll see. Maybe next year companies do avoid that particular week, for that reason. There's going to be a lot of other stuff announced.
They might. Yeah, they absolutely might. Now, this is usually a pretty slow week for events, though, right? The 4th of July week.
Yeah, this week and next week. Very little going on either of those weeks.
This year. Wait till next year, Rich. There's going to be something. Somebody's going to do it and put something on 4th of July. You watch. You watch. It'll be one of the big guys.
It's funny. The calendar is filling in. There are so many events. So the pattern for ages has been that the event season essentially ends right around Thanksgiving, like right around the end of November. There might be an event or two right at the beginning of December, but then nothing much going on through the holidays and very, very little going on typically in January. It's right around February when it starts to pick up again. But Aavik, the network management folks, they have their first ever event in January next year. And I haven't really spoken about this with anyone over there, but I'm absolutely convinced the reason they decided to do it in January is when else during the year are you going to put it on the calendar and not come up against somebody else's show? So
Right. Yeah. What else can you do it? And we run into this problem with our shows all the time. It's like, we don't want to have it at the same time as Lenovo Accelerate, but my goodness, I mean, like there's something like that all the time.
Yeah.
But you know who's not going to have an event on the 4th of July next year? I can tell you who. Do you want to know who? Breach Secure Now, because they're too worried about their new security as a service solution.
Yeah.
Well,
and if there's any kind of common theme across the Bitdefender story and this Breach Secure Now story, I was saying that the new MSP partner program kind of pulls together a lot of stuff and packages it up in a way that makes it easier to consume. It's pretty similar to what Breach Secure Now is doing. That the company really started out as a sort of security awareness training, anti-phishing campaign kind of vendor, but their offerings have really expanded slowly but steadily through the years. They've got dark web monitoring now. They do security risk assessments now. They have always done under a different brand, the HIPAA Secure Now brand, HIPAA-related assessments and training and so on. And what they have decided to do recently is pull all this stuff together and package it up as an SMB security as a service offering. So for one subscription price, one rate, you can get all the stuff that they do, basically. And their argument is, you take that collection of services and technologies that they have, and you add your managed services to it. And this is essentially a cybersecurity practice in a box. You've got the training and the anti-phishing and the assessments and the dark web monitoring and your own ongoing monitoring and mitigation. And that's something that you can take to a customer and say, hey, here's my cybersecurity business, X dollars a month. And it's kind of easy for people to understand and easy for people to market. Now, I will say, and this is important, most of what's in that security as a service package is existing stuff that they did before, but just sort of pulled together in an easier way. But there are some new additions to it as well. In particular, the most notable one is that they are now offering cybersecurity insurance. So as part of that package that you bring to an end user, you can sell them cyber insurance in $250,000, $500,000, or $1 million increments. They didn't want to talk to me about, who's the insurance company behind that, but it's an A+ rated carrier, I am told. There's no particular certification or qualification you need to sell this stuff. It's just something that you can explain to and sell to your customers as part of a cybersecurity package. And I mean, I think everybody will agree, all of your customers need cyber insurance these days. So it's kind of a clever thing to staple onto that package. And then there's also sort of an interesting new plugin for the anti-phishing technology that they've had for a long time, where obviously they're sending simulated phishing attacks out to people, waiting to see if somebody takes the bait or not. They now have this plugin associated with that technology that allows somebody who sees an email that isn't actually part of a simulated phishing campaign, but looks suspicious to the end user. They can kind of click this button now and say, hey, is this phishing or not? And the way end users typically handle that now, if they see something that kind of makes them think this could be trouble, they will often forward that on to the MSP and ask, is this a problem? Should I be clicking on this? What this new plugin does basically is automatically send that message off to an artificial intelligence kind of back end, essentially, that will analyze it and provide an immediate response. Yes, this is suspicious or a problem. Don't click on it. Or no, it's benign. So it kind of takes that burden off of the MSP. It gets immediate feedback to an end user who might be tempted to click on a link. So that's kind of an interesting addition to the package as well. So
it would seem to me that a lot of people may have gotten into IT originally because when they were looking at their career prospects, it was like, well, I could either sell insurance or I could go into IT. But now if you're in IT, you have to sell insurance.
You make that sound like a bad thing. I thought you were going to say, now you no longer have to choose. You get both, people.
I'm going to die. So this also had another acronym that I have never seen before. SECAAS. What does that stand for?
So the SEC is security, and the AAS is as a service.
Oh, so it's not SaaS. It's just because that would have been software as a service.
Yeah.
Because now we have too many S words as a service. So now we have to take a few extra letters in order to differentiate. So what's the return on selling insurance in this? So if I sell $1 million policy, what do I get?
That's a great question. I don't actually know the answer. How you sort of get cut into the action on that, or if it's really more about, protecting your clients. And I assume it's one of these deals where you are selling all of this stuff, the assessments, the anti-phishing, et cetera. You're selling it all to the customer for one price. You never want to kind of line item that sort of thing out and start negotiating with people on the contents of the bundle. So you're selling them a bundle for one price, and you can kind of mark up, that cyber insurance protection however you choose. I assume. I did not actually get into the specifics on that with them.
I find this fascinating because, IT resellers are not insurance salesmen. How do you even wrap your head around? So this is cybersecurity insurance. What does that mean? What does that cover? Now I know what cybersecurity is, but how would one file a claim against said policy?
If you suffer a breach, you think about the expenses that you're going to have to deal with as an end user if you have a breach, in terms of cleaning up the damage to your systems, notifying customers, dealing potentially with the impact to your reputation. It's kind of a big mess and an expensive mess, and that's basically what you're filing a claim for. I mean, the mechanics of how you file the claim, I don't know exactly, but that's the kind of protection that you're getting. And in fact, the security policies that are included, and I assume this is relatively common, but the security policies that are included in the Breach Secure Now offering include, I want to get the terminology here now, but I believe they call it breach remediation services. So the ability to have an expert come in and help you clean things up for your customer. Breach response services is how they call it, or what they call it. But yeah. So this whole cyber insurance field has really kind of sprung up out of nowhere, just within the last few years. And it's really like everything else, I think, to a great extent, sparked by ransomware and the ever increasing volume of companies that have been hit by ransomware and all the damage that can do. And so insurance companies are stepping in with these policies. And then the other thing that is coming up a lot, and we're going to have an article about this, I believe, in the July issue, if I'm not mistaken. Now, the insurance companies are kind of pushing back on some of these claims. Somebody will file a claim and, hey, we've suffered a breach. And the insurance company will say, well, hey, wait a minute. There was a requirement in the policy that you have an enterprise-grade firewall in place, and I don't like the looks of that firewall you had. You didn't meet your requirements. We're not obligated to pay. This is starting to happen in greater and greater with greater and greater.
It seems to me too there could also be a lot of fraud with something like this, right? Because anybody can stage a breach, encourage a breach, right? I mean, how do I make $1 million really, really fast? Give somebody credentials in my network on the dark web and wait to get hacked, right? This seems like it's not going to be a good idea. I don't know.
It would have to be an even more elaborate and devious scheme than that. I mean, you wouldn't want to just, even with cyber insurance, right? I mean, a successful breach or ransomware attack is going to be a huge problem. So you don't want to do that to a legitimate business. You would actually have to go out and create a business that exists for no other reason than to be attacked, so that you could file the claim. I don't know. I mean, there are people who crash their cars deliberately to collect auto insurance. I'm sure there's some possibility for fraud out there. I don't know how common that is.
Well, I guess it remains to be seen. We'll just have to find out. But yeah, crazy. Crazy, crazy, crazy. All right. Next up on our list is inSOC, inSOC.
Yeah.
inSOC. How do you pronounce that, Rich?
I'm going to say inSOC.
inSOC, but there's no K. So it'd be inSOC. Can you see that? Being sick, it's actually easier to say that. inSOC, because it's like I'm hacking up phlegm. inSOC calls Turnkey Holistic Security its competitive edge. That's what it says. But is it really?
That's the strategy. So inSOC, and the reason I pronounce it inSOC, aside from the fact that they do, is the SOC, the SOC in inSOC stands for Security Operations Center. And so inSOC is sort of the newest member of this community of vendors out there who are providing outsourced SOC services to MSPs. The constructing and running a security operations center is an enormous expense. There are certainly companies out there, ChannelPro readers, who have done it and are big enough to do it. And from every time I talk to one of those companies, it's a great business to be in. But I think the vast majority of MSPs really can't afford to do that. And so you've got lots of companies out there, from Continuum and Vigilant. SolarWinds MSP doesn't do it itself, but it partners with a number of different companies who use its software to deliver outsourced SOC services. You're seeing more and more of this pop up. And now here's a newcomer to the market called inSOC that is also available to do that with you. It features people who, it's run by people who were MSPs and cybersecurity specialists themselves before. There are some people who worked for a UK-based company called InBay, which is sort of a technology distributor company there. That might be familiar to some folks. So people who have been around the channel for a while. But, they're stepping into a market that is populated with lots of other people out there. And so the first question you ask when you interview these folks is, well, what is it that you're doing that's going to be a little bit different, that's going to set you apart, that's going to maybe make you a little bit more attractive to MSPs? And their response, what they see as the thing that they're really going to hang their hat on is, the offering is comprehensive. They would argue, and some of these other SOC operators, I'm sure, would dispute this contention, but they say that typically you can find some of what you need from this provider and some of what you need from that provider, and you as the MSP have to kind of package it all together on your end. They claim, that they've got a truly comprehensive offering. And they also have really optimized it in every respect for simplicity. And that's the other thing that they say is a differentiator for them. They understand that the MSPs that are going after can't really invest enormous amounts of time in becoming security experts. And so they're going to take, abstract that complexity from the user, as it were, and take a lot of that off their plate, make it a very easy service to use. And then where they're providing the education really is around how to sell the service, position it to your customers and so on, and run an assessment with your end user, have that security conversation with them so you can do that with confidence. But in terms of actually delivering the protection, that they're going to handle the complex parts for you. And, again, their contention is it's an easier SOC to work with than some of the alternatives.
And what about the pricing return on for partners with this as opposed to other? Yeah. So I don't want to say one-stop SOC solutions, because I don't really know if there are others that are quite as comprehensive as this particular bundle, but there are certainly other options.
Right. And we should say one-stop SOC is the name that they have attached to this service, which is the first of several. They have other things coming along in the future, apparently. This is not going to be their only service. I don't have specifics, like specific dollar amounts on the pricing, but the position where, based on the interview I did with them, and this was a conversation I had, another conversation at DattoCon, by the way, they say that they've got a pretty significant price edge against some of these other solutions we're talking about as well. So, and I forget, unfortunately, I forget they didn't give me specific dollar amounts. They did at some point in that interview kind of give me a sense for just how much more aggressively priced it is. And I don't have that number off the top of my head, so I can't quote it. But that will be, it's not a part of the story that they emphasize in talking with you, but I think it will end up being a part of the story for an MSP who's evaluating different options, is that this one might be priced more competitively than some of the others.
Interesting. I don't know a whole lot about socks other than the kind that I put on my feet. But it seems like theirs is going to be as good as everybody else's, but maybe not as good. I mean, how do they fit in the whole grand scheme of the competitive stack of others?
One of the things that they did that I do think was wise, and I'm sure they're not the only vendor to do this, but rather than go out and create their own set of security standards, if you will, they based everything that they do on the NIST framework. So the federal government's NIST framework, which is very widely respected now, and really just even within the last 12 months is kind of becoming an industry standard. And if you do business with anyone who's in any way affiliated with the Department of Defense in terms of providing technology services, I mean, it's literally a required standard. So they adopted NIST as the basis for their solution, and then also the Center for Internet Security's list of guidelines, the Center for Internet Security's top 20 list of critical security controls. So again, rather than asking you to trust them to know best what's most effective for protecting an end user environment, they're sort of relying on these very widely respected, highly regarded authorities and building their solution around that.
Okay. Well, we'll have to see how it goes for them. Hopefully it works out. And I'm sure this won't be the last time that we see them.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, this is a brand new company. They really just opened their doors within the last few weeks, and so yeah, we'll see where it goes. So, has anybody sold them insurance yet? I don't know. Good question. We'll have to find out. I'll bet they're thoroughly insured. I'll bet anyone in the security area is very, very well insured. Yeah, I should insure my socks too, because the kind that have the little grippies on the bottom, those are pretty pricey. And if they were to get lost or stolen, I would want a lot of coverage on those. Yeah. Well, That's my thinking. Well, I have an instinct that we'll see them again, and there's a deeper instinct out there. That's not the greatest segue I've ever done, but we'll roll with it, Rich. That's not bad. It was okay. Bad. It was all right. I'll give it a 4.5 on a scale of 1 to 10. Yeah, but Deep Instinct have added protection for Chrome OS. What are they doing for Chrome? I thought Chrome was impervious to all security problems, and powered by unicorns and and jelly beans. But yeah, you got that from Google, did you? Yeah, that's kind of that's what people tell me, right? Like, oh, I got a Chromebook. I don't have to worry about security. I don't have to worry about viruses. I don't have to worry about all that stuff because I have a Chromebook. Well, it turns out. Truth is. Maybe not so much. And I mean, I don't know how Chrome OS stacks up against Windows and iOS and Mac OS and all that, and it presents a smaller target, so it's it is a smaller target. There's no doubt about that. And usually the average person using Chrome OS is a lot smaller too, right? Because they're little peoples, not like midgets. I mean, like kids, like K to 8, kind of kids. Yeah, but that's changing. That is changing. Yeah, well, yeah, absolutely. Those kids are growing up all the time, and it won't be long before they're running SMBs. This is why distributors like Synex are very serious about building a G Suite business, and I mean they could see the long-term trend. But in the short term here, now for folks out there, and I'm sure there are hundreds and hundreds of people listening who committed ChannelPro's 2019 vendors on the Vanguard list to memory. And for those of you out there who did that, you will remember that one of the companies that we highlighted this year on our vendors on the Vanguard list, which talks about, it's an annual institution here, and we talk about companies that are emerging, up and coming, underappreciated, companies you should know more about. One of them was called Deep Instinct. And this is a security vendor, an endpoint security vendor that is using deep learning technology. So you know about machine learning technology, which is all the rage in the security world, as well as elsewhere. Very effective at spotting behavior-based and other kinds of risks. But you do have to kind of provide some training. You have to kind of teach the machine what to look for and what to learn from with machine learning. And the next generation of machine learning or artificial intelligence is this deep learning concept where after just a little bit of pump priming, if you will, the technology really does learn on its own. And Deep Instinct is one of the first, if not the first, endpoint security tools out there to have that kind of deep learning, self-learning capability. Very interesting product. I became aware of it through the 20, which you're familiar with, Matt. It's a group of MSPs who share tools and business practices and so on. We've talked about them before. They adopted Deep Instinct last year because they ran a whole bunch of lab tests against it and compared it to some of the more familiar alternatives out there and just discovered that they were finding all sorts of viruses and infections and problems with Deep Instinct that they weren't seeing with some of the other better known tools out there. And so they decided to standardize on Deep Instinct. Deep Instinct has had fairly comprehensive coverage actually for a lot of the platforms I mentioned before, Mac OS and Windows, obviously, iOS. They didn't have Chrome OS protection previously. They've got that now. And so they are quite pleased to point out that they can secure laptops and desktops and servers and mobile devices now running pretty much all of the platforms you are most likely to encounter on any of those device categories. And
also, apparently, it looks like it makes your screens pop out of your laptop.
That's actually more about our illustration than the service. Although
really cool. We need a service that does that, though. That's kind of neat.
Well, yeah, I'll bet if you found the right virtual reality goggles, you could do that.
Yes, that's the world of AR coming at you. This has nothing to do with AR. Hey, is it just me, or is every time I read or hear the word Deep Instinct, I immediately think of that movie with Morgan Freeman back like in the 90s with the meteor that was like blowing up the Earth? I know that was called Deep Impact, but man, it's so similar that I can't help but think.
Believe me, no, you are not alone. I am right there with you. And the very first time I wrote about Deep Instinct, I remember having to continually change Deep Impact back to Deep Instinct.
Yeah. They should get Morgan Freeman to do commercials for them.
Yeah.
That would be good. But they don't want to relate their product to something that's crashing and burning. Right, because wasn't that like, it's been a long time since I've seen that movie, but like the Earth was blowing up or something, right? Like it got hit by a meteor. There was a bunch of meteor movies that year, and I get confused like which was, because I think it was the same year that like Space Cowboys came out. And
I don't know if that was a meteor movie, but there was one that came out right around the same time with Bruce Willis. I can't remember the name of it.
Yeah, wasn't that Space Cowboys?
No, that was the one with Clint Eastwood and.
There was another meteor one.
Yeah.
And I can't remember what the difference between the two movies were other than Morgan Freeman and Bruce Willis.
Yeah.
We need to, audience, if you know your meteor disaster movies from the 90s, let us know in the chat which one we're thinking of, because we can't seem to remember off the top of our head. Which one did you like better? We really need to figure out which movie it was, though.
Yeah, I wish I could remember the name. Because I think I'm nearly positive I enjoyed the Bruce Willis one better.
Yeah, we're gonna do a little search here. Let's see. There was one that was called not Asteroid. Armageddon. Isn't that what it was? Armageddon. Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah, because Deep Impact and Armageddon were almost like released at the same time. Because naturally in Hollywood, we can't have a single like unique idea that doesn't get done 400 times.
All right.
But what was Armageddon about? Like, what was the one? Were they trying to blow up the asteroid in space, and the other one, like the asteroid actually hit, right? Was that the difference?
Yeah. Well, and actually, if I remember right, in both movies, there was an attempt made to blow up the asteroid, but in Deep Impact, I think, so something did strike the Earth. If I remember right, there were like two giant asteroids. One was enormous and would have just ended all life on Earth, and one was smaller, and the smaller one did wind up impacting. And there was this giant tidal wave that inundated the entire eastern United States and so on. But the basic premise of both movies was very, very similar.
Yeah, blow up the asteroid and live, right?
Exactly.
It's just I'm going to have to go back and watch these two because I haven't seen either one of those in a very long time. I think I saw them both like in that year, and then I never watched them again. There might be a reason for that.
Yeah.
Now that I think about it. But maybe that would be a fun segment we could introduce. We could do like an IT movie review.
Yeah.
But it would have to be like, we'd have to have some kind of shtick for it, like movies reviewed by IT people.
Right.
Or we could just review like the IT movies, but there's not as many of those as there are ridiculous remakes and reboots.
Yeah, we should have listeners contact us and say, hey, I want to come on the podcast and review thus and such movie. What was the one with Matthew? Now I can't even remember his name. Anyway, there are.
Are you talking with Matthew Broderick?
Yes, thank you.
War Games.
Yes, War Games. Right?
War Games,
Like,
that's a great
write us and say, hey, I want to come on and review War Games.
That is the movie that taught me how to butter corn on the cob with a piece of bread.
I think a lot of people learned that. Yeah,
which was a great skill, I have to say, because not only do you get buttery good corn, but you get like a piece of bread afterwards that's like got melted kind of butter on it, and it's nice and warm.
Yeah,
that's genius right there.
Yeah,
that was when Hollywood could teach us things.
Yeah,
useful life skills. I'm gonna die again. Excuse me. Okay. Now that we've covered that, yes, we will have to talk about a movie review segment. Take 5 minutes, and maybe you and I can pick a movie, and we'll just go my take, your take, and see how opposite we are.
Okay,
that could be fun. All right. Well, that kind of covers the news. Any other news you want to talk about?
No, I think that does it for the news.
All right. So we've got another story, and we've done a few of these. I was not consulted, by the way, for this particular list.
Oh, well, you see, now you're thinking, go ahead and introduce the story here, and then I think I know what you have on your mind.
Well, not that it's a big deal anyway, but Colleen Fry, our, what is her official title now? I always forget.
Managing editor,
right. She came up with a great idea last year and a half ago, something like that, to kind of compile a list of books that like people who's who in the industry are reading. And we've had several of these lists now, right?
Yeah, well, and I mean, and we do it in a whole bunch of different ways now. So, I mean, this originally, this was I'm going to say 3 years ago. We had something on the editorial calendar for this time of year, basically, where we were going to go out to MSPs and ask them to suggest, summer reading, essentially. And we were looking for business books. But the idea is, hey, we're heading into summer reading season. We'll contact some MSPs. We'll get suggestions for them on what their peers should be reading. But Colleen has really turned it into this whole kind of thing. So, I mean, she has this thing called the ChannelPro Book Club. And now and again, she'll just at random points during the year, she'll publish a list like this up on the website. And the thing that I was alluding to before that you may have been thinking about was at the end of the year, in last December, she came to everybody, all of her colleagues on the ChannelPro staff, and said, give me a book. And so instead of asking MSPs, I'm going to ask the ChannelPro team. And we
that time it was just specific to us.
Right.
That's why. Okay.
Yeah.
So I shouldn't feel like insulted that I was
not at all.
Not that the book that I offered for that list was insightful or meaningful in any particular way, but I thought it was a good pick. In fact, I'm gonna get my book and I'm gonna hold it up. But you go ahead and talk about this list while I grab that.
Okay. So this is the, again, like third or fourth annual installment of the summer reading list. And per tradition, we went out to MSPs and asked them for some suggestions. I believe we've got 8 or 9 of them in all this year. This article's up on our website now, and you can kind of go check it out for yourself, which I encourage you to do. All these books are interesting in one way or another. But just maybe to give you a sense for the kind of things that people were telling us about. So Beth Burnside owns a CMIT franchise in Erie, Pennsylvania. And she recommended a book called Crucial Conversations, Tools for Talking When Stakes Are High by Kerry Patterson, Joseph Grenny, Ron McMillan, and Al Switzler. You know, if you struggle to have difficult conversations with employees, if you struggle to have difficult conversations with your customers, if that's something that sometimes you don't feel you do as well as you would like to, here is a book basically that provides some really concrete advice on handling those kind of situations. And it's probably rare that the person who would not benefit from some advice on that is probably relatively rare. There was another book I kind of enjoyed this one because I have some direct experience with the advice in it. The book was suggested by Derek Davis, who is principal and managing partner of Intelinet, an IT services provider in Greenville, South Carolina. Lovely community, by the way. And the book he suggested is called Never Split the Difference, Negotiating as if Your Life Depended on It. And it was written by Chris Voss, who used to be the lead hostage negotiator for the FBI. So, I mean, he knows a thing or two about negotiating. And you would think, how much can a ChannelPro learn about negotiating from the FBI's lead hostage negotiator? But it turns out he's got all sorts of great tips. And there's one in particular that comes up in this book that I have experienced personally, and it really does work. So if you find yourself in a situation where you're trying to get somebody to approve something, or even just to ask a question, you keep maybe sending an email to a customer and you just need them to answer a question and they're not getting back to you, one of the things Voss suggests that you can do in this situation is ask the question in a way that essentially makes them say no. And I'll give you a real specific example of how that works, because this really happened to me. So Colleen and I it's an interesting thing. So we're both editors, but we're also both writers. And so we edit each other's work. And, you know, like anyone in that kind of situation who wears both hats, when I'm writing, I have no use for editors. And when I'm editing, I have no use for writers. And so anyway, she sent me a draft of something that she had written. And I changed like the first sentence of it in some way because I saw an issue with it. And I sent it back to her literally minutes before you and I went on the air with the podcast. And she was not happy about the change that I had suggested. And so she writes me back and she says in an email, I actually kind of need the sentence to flow the way I had it before. So I'm just going to put it back to the way it was. Okay. And I'm like, I'm on the air with you. You're talking with me. I'm trying to sound like and I see that email and simultaneously I'm responding to it. Like I could not wait 2 hours until the end of the podcast to tell her, no, there was a reason for that change. I'm emailing her in real time during the podcast. We'll talk about it later. I have seen this work in other situations as well. If you put somebody in that situation where they are seeming to approve of something that you're suggesting to them, unless they respond with a no, you can actually get a response from somebody who is just not getting back to you. Never Split the Difference is the book. I'm guessing there's more good advice like that in there.
Yeah, I like that one. I'm going to pick that book up. I'm very interested in reading that one. There was, you want to talk about any other ones? There was one that I kind of wanted to mention that I saw on this list that I like, and this is kind of something that I'm kind of a proponent of these days, and that's this book, "Turn It Off" by Gil Gordon.
Yeah.
The tagline on it here is how to unplug from the anytime, anywhere office without disconnecting your career. And as someone who has worked for ChannelPro for a long time and works from home, this is particularly a difficult thing to do for people who work from home. Right. Because when you are home, you don't have that work-life separation by a physical locale. Like my work is on my phone, my work is in my office upstairs. I'm always here. I'm working strange hours all the time. There's got to be a way to disconnect from that. And this kind of focuses a lot on how to deal with that in a work-life balance. But I would also say that this is a good lesson to be learned for just a life, social media life balance as well. There are way too many people who are living other people's lives and not their own, and I think that's a big problem. So books like this really help you see and kind of redefine when it's okay to disconnect and to be focused on those other things in your life that are very easy to push to the side.
And I'll say the two key words in the title or the subtitle, I guess, are how to. It says how to unplug, and so I haven't read the book, so I can't really say whether the advice within the book is helpful or not. But I think a lot of people would agree. I hope anyway. A lot of people would agree with what you just said. But then would say it's just kind of so hard to do. And my hope for this book would be that it has some good concrete suggestions for how you can actually pull that off.
Yeah, I haven't read this either. I just read the title and a little bit of the synopsis on Amazon. But it who knows what's in it? But it is an important thing to bring up, and it's something that between work demands for certain careers that become very difficult to disconnect from, and social media, it's so easy just to go day to day and just ignore yourself, ignore your own life. And there's got to be a balance there, and hopefully books like this help you find it.
Yeah. That was a really good suggestion. That one came to us. Who did that come to us from? Lisa Marie Papp, who is the owner of Computer Solutions and Networking, an MSP in Atlanta. And so we thank her for that.
Right. So the other one, an honorable mention, which this book, I think, came out at the wrong time because clearly they got it wrong. This one is about blue ocean strategy. Unfortunately, it's all about Green Lake now. So this book is now irrelevant.
Right. And
you didn't know what to say. Yay! I got you.
I was just going to say the publishers of ChannelPro magazine have not been compensated by Hewlett Packard Enterprise.
That's awesome. Yeah, I don't know what that one's all about. Now, if you are looking for another book to read, something that you can do on hours or over your lunch break, I recommend this book right here. Who Took All the Paper Clips? By Rachel Rafat. This book is a lot of fun. It's basically lots of little projects and things that you can do in your office when you're bored. She says, fun things to do with office supplies when the boss isn't looking. And I can give you a couple of examples.
It's not just paper clips.
It's not just paper clips. So this one, for example, is it'll teach you how to do a reupholstered bubble chair. So you can take bubble wrap and you can reupholster your office chair with it to make it all massagey and bubbly.
It'll make some embarrassing noises.
There's a couple other one here. A couple other ones. You can do a personalized keyboard by doing like little fun stencils and painting and pictures on your keys. There are lots of paperclip things in here, I will say, like the paperclip necklace. It's not focusing. Focus. But there's that one in there. Yeah, all kinds of fun stuff. So if you work, yes, the Voodoo Boss. Who
made from what?
Made from a mouse pad, a permanent marker, cardstock, scissors, push pins, and glue. So if you have an old mouse pad, you can turn it into something to stab your boss with. Not recommended for ChannelPro employees, by the way, because we have a wonderful and fantastic boss. No, fun book. So that was my pick a few years ago, because sometimes you need a smile during your workday, and you need to waste office supplies to make sure that you get the same amount of office supplies next year. Isn't that how that works?
That's right. Use them or lose them, folks.
use them or lose them. All right. So there's lots of other books in that gallery that we have, that list. There's I don't know how many books we got here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 books somewhere in there.
I think it's 9.
So we only talked about a few of them. Lots to read there. We got a link here in the discussion. There'll be a link in the show notes, so you can go and pick up some good summer reading from experts and other folks like you, your peers. And if you have a great book, Rich, do we have a way to solicit book suggestions?
I don't think we have a dedicated email address or something like that. We don't. So what the best way to do that? Go to the ChannelProNetwork.com website, and then there's like a contact us form. Just hit other, and then you could submit a book suggestion that way, or you could email us directly, podcast@ChannelProNetwork.com. That goes directly to me and Rich, so we can pass those book suggestions along to Miss Colleen if you have a good book suggestion. So always looking for more. Always need something new to read, right, Rich? Yeah. I love the book suggestions we get from readers.
So if we were going to talk about opportunities, and when we're talking about next gen markets, we're not talking like supermarkets. We're talking about something else. What are the opportunities, Rich?
This is an article that recently appeared on the website. We didn't get a chance to highlight. This is yet another example of something overlapping with DataCon. Same time that event was going on, Tech Data was actually doing its Channel Link event, and I was unable to attend, and our buddy Joel was unable to attend. So our boss, Michael Siggins, did go. And thanks to the folks at Tech Data, they set him up with the 4 people. There are 4 next generation businesses that Tech Data has essentially bet its future on right now, and that's security, IoT, cloud computing, and what they call endpoint solutions. So don't think so much about the device as about solutions that you kind of build around particular kinds of hardware. And the folks at Tech Data set Michael up with the people who are spearheading the growth in the solution businesses in those 4 areas. And Michael did a series of interviews with them about sort of like a primer with each one of them in a way about, what are the entry point opportunities in these next generation markets for ChannelPro readers, and what are the things you need to know? What's the profitability look like? What's the degree of difficulty, et cetera? And so we have pulled together some excerpts from and advice from those interviews into a sort of a slide gallery that we've posted recently on the website. We'll have a link to it, obviously, in the show sheet. The article is called Opportunities in Next Gen Markets. And without diving into any of the particulars, I would just say interesting stuff and worth investigating.
Yeah, so this is a potato moment. Is it primer or is it primer?
I'm a primer guy, and I'm gonna dig my heels in on that. I think it's primer.
Well, wouldn't the subset be the root word of there would be prime, right? To prime.
No,
yeah, because you're to prime
primary
is
or something.
To prime is to prepare or to. So I'm going to dig my heels in, Rich, and say it's primer.
We'll have to get Colleen to settle this.
Yes, we do need to have a third. So we're gonna go back, and I say potato. You say potato. But I am very curious. I hear that sometimes, on occasion. Primer. I believe it's primer. Well, we'll have Colleen judge on that. So there's a lot to. I don't want to say there's a lot to talk about there. Why don't we just send people to the article to kind of read through that?
Yeah,
and go from there. So I think your description was apt enough. It was a good primer to the article,
or primer,
or one of those two. Premiere. Well, definitely not premiere. That would be spelled totally different. All right. So we do not have an interview this week, right?
Correct.
Okay, so and that's something as we've been kind of easing back in there, we haven't had a lot of guests on lately, but I think we're probably going to start booking some more guests here in the near future, I would assume. Right?
Yeah, once we're right on the edge of just getting into a nice rhythm again, and once we've done that, I absolutely want to get guest hosts back on the show with us again, because we've had some great ones. I want to have them back, and there are other folks we can involve as well. So yeah, we'll definitely go back to doing that.
Yeah, it'll be fun. We should get Colleen on a show here one of these days too. Just we can have word wars. We'll talk about ways you can pronounce words and who's right and wrong. because that'll be fun.
Yeah, she can be the judge. I always defer to her rulings and matters grammatical and anything related to that. She's quite an authority in that area.
So when it comes down to it, though, who wins in a debate over an edit? Do you win or does she win? Because you're like the boss, right?
What's that?
You're like the editorial boss.
So it depends on the nature of the edit, right? So when I say I defer to Colleen on grammatical issues and style things, I do mean it, like, because I just know she's right and I'm wrong, even if I don't understand why I'm wrong. her knowledge is so much more vast than mine that if she tells me really it needs to be capitalized, or there should be a period at the end, I just go with it. But in other areas, if push really comes to shove, I guess mine is the final word. I try not to be that guy too often, though, where it's like, we're doing it my way, damn it, just do it.
Yeah, I would also defer. She has an amazing grasp of the English language. I mean, she is a phenomenal editor.
Yes.
Really, really good. So I rarely ever argue with her if she comes back with edits. The only time I argue is if it changes what I meant. That's usually when I push back. Because I don't like it when like I said something in a way to mean something, and now it means something totally different. And in the tech world, she understands language. She doesn't always understand the tech world. So like sometimes when you change the words of tech, you actually are changing what you're saying, right? So but that has only happened a couple times.
Yeah, and this goes back to what I was talking about earlier in the show, folks. Which is this is how writers talk about editors.
Right, and also another important thing though, like I am an okay writer, right? I'm actually a fairly good editor, but you should never edit your own work ever.
It can't be done.
Right, it's because like Colleen and Rich make my writing way better. Because when you're putting it to paper, you'll never catch your own mistakes. It's so rare because it makes sense to you, but it won't necessarily make sense to anybody else. So take that as a don't rely so much on necessarily your the tools in your Word document. I know people are in love with Grammarly right now, and I can tell because I can tell in 5 seconds if you used Grammarly in order to edit your writing. Which is better than nothing, right? But like if you're doing something super important, have some other human being read your work, right? Because they will read it differently, and they will catch things that you didn't even think or ways that you said things. Like I know that this is not a huge writing crowd, but it's important to never edit your own work.
That's great advice. It really is.
So on that note, Rich, I'm never turning in another article again for edit because I'm going to use Grammarly instead because it doesn't yell at me. All right. So we don't have an interview this week, but we do have a museum pick because we didn't get a museum pick in last week, I don't think. Because we were running short on time. I can't remember. Do we have a museum pick last week?
I definitely know we missed at least one in there. So yeah, we're making up for lost museum picks here.
All right, so we got a museum pick. So for those who are unfamiliar, the quick 5-second overview. I have a hoarding problem. I have since I was young. Anything electronic with buttons and screens, computers, game pads, video games. I cannot get rid of it. I've tried. I actually did get rid of some old desktops not too long ago. So, Rich, there is hope. There is hope for me. But they were nothing special desktops. But I have amassed an enormous collection of interesting technology products over the years. Some of the stuff that I just have used naturally over time. Some stuff that I know that had significance or value that I caught at a yard sale or bought at the time for some other reason or grabbed if somebody was getting rid of it because I knew what it was. So it's really fun to watch the evolution of technology. And I've got IT and computer products. I mean, Rich has been to my house. He has seen my problem, as my wife would call it, my severe illness of hoarding. But it's a lot of stuff, Rich.
Yeah.
It's a lot of stuff. It's a good snapshot of history. I also have a lot of consumer products. And we talk about some of those on occasion, but I do have a PC related one. As it's also no surprise, I'm a big fan of gaming. Back before I had 2 children, one of my hobbies was playing video games. Now that I have 2 children, especially now that they're a little older and have very, very hectic schedules with their own things, I am now a professional chauffeur. So my hobby is now buying video games, not necessarily playing them. But I buy them. But if you can look behind me, I've got a whole bunch of consoles and stuff right here. But I've also got a massive PC library and massive amount of PC peripherals and accessories. And I'm going to talk about one of those today. And I look back in the show notes, and I do not believe I've discussed this one. So my museum pick this week, and the reason why I'm doing this week, I should also say, is because I finally got kind of caught up on E3 coverage, which was admittedly like a month ago. But I just have not had a lot of time to really dive into a lot of the E3 stuff. And there was not a significant amount of interesting things for the channel. There was some good interesting game releases. Maybe we could talk about them in a few weeks, but there wasn't a whole lot, right? Sony didn't even have a press conference this year. Bethesda's press conference was kind of light. They didn't, they're still trying to kind of recover from the Fallout 76 kind of debacle and make massive improvements to that game to make it something that people want to play. There's a new Doom coming that they announced, Doom Eternal. All of them hark back to the time when you would want to play games with something other than a keyboard and a mouse. And the big reason why I'm picking this one because there was one game announced at the Microsoft E3 press conference that I caught that I was not sure they were going to do another one of these, but they are. And that is they're going to do another flight simulator game, a new entry into the Microsoft Flight Simulator game. And it looked awesome. It looked amazing. And if you are going to play a flight sim or one of those old games back in the day, they weren't really designed for keyboard and mouse controls weren't really the thing. You would use something like this. Now, this is the Logitech Wingman Attack. And for those who are looking at it and say, well, that looks a lot like the Wingman Attack 2, which was a very, very popular, very long used entry into the joystick peripheral series. And there was actually a predecessor to the Wingman Attack 2. It was the Wingman Attack. The reason why this one did not get used for very long and was ultimately replaced is because of this part right here, which this is called the game port connector.
Wow.
Back in the day, before USB became ubiquitous and took over, there was a lot more specialized ports for things and like sound cards, like the Sound Blaster and other cards. They had a dedicated, 15 pin, 9 pin, I don't know, I think 15 pin, kind of serial-ish connector, specifically for hooking up gaming peripherals like the wingman attack. But this came out, and then this was around for a little while, but they came up with a USB version of this called the Attack 2, and that was used for a very, very long time. It was a very popular joystick. But these made games, especially flight simulators, which is what they kind of started to specialize around, because eventually game pads were never huge in PC. There are game pads, but joysticks were kind of a big thing for a while. So I remember, not this particular one, but I had like this old Memorex joystick, 2 buttons on the top, which unfortunately I don't have anymore. I think my dad might have it. But we would play Doom with that all the time, and other kind of games, because you were playing a game, you wanted like a joystick to play it with, because keyboard and mouse was not the de facto control scheme back in the day. So that's what this is. You ever use a joystick?
Well, certainly nothing like that. I'm thinking way back, showing my age now, to the very first Atari gaming system, and that had a very, very simple kind of joystick controller.
Yeah, simple joystick, red button on top.
Yeah, exactly.
Yep, single button. Yeah, this was a 4 button. So this had a trigger, and it had on top 1, 2, 3. So 4 buttons up here, and then it had, as I said, they started to kind of get specialized with features for space and flight sim games. So it has like this kind of thrust control analog kind of slider here on the bottom. But it was a good joystick. It still is, and it was, it had game port. I could actually still use this if game port was like still a thing. But the USB version of this, there's still a lot of people who use it. Still pretty popular. Not as popular as it used to be, but fun stuff. And with a new flight sim coming out, it seemed prudent to visit the history of joysticks. But that was then, Rich, and this is now. And joysticks are not commonly used for most PC gaming. Is that a shock to you?
A little bit. And is it mostly mouse these days, or
it is, because the most popular genre in gaming is first-person shooters in general. That is a control scheme that is very well done with a mouse and a keyboard.
Right.
So you don't get to a lot of customized gaming peripherals. Some people like game pads, and there's a couple controllers that are pretty popular. The Microsoft Xbox 360, Xbox One PC era controllers are fairly well used on games. You can a lot of games, not all games support them, but a lot of games do. Steam, we've talked about at one point the Steam Link and the Steam controller that Valve has. I don't know if you've ever seen that.
No, I don't believe so. I do remember talking about it, but I don't think I've seen it.
Yeah, Steam made a big play to try to really push PC gaming back into the living room, and they did one of the best jobs of it of any company in the last 10 years to try and bring PC gaming to the living room. And that was with their Steam Link. So it was this little tiny box you could hook up to your network and hook up to your TV. Your PC would run the games, and then it would stream the video to the television, and your controller, and it could be a keyboard and mouse, it could be or this game controller they came up with called the Steam controller, which is fully customizable and mappable to do things that even if a game wasn't designed with a PC controller in mind, a game controller, it had like 2 pads, so it could simulate the mouse, and it could simulate, you can map keyboard buttons to it. So it was a very, very versatile controller. But the vast majority of gaming is done by the keyboard and mouse, with a couple exceptions. And the flight sim genre, flight and space sims, have really and racing games, I should also say too, racing games. You can buy like a wheel, like an actual steering wheel, pedals that go on the floor, so you can actually race. And flight controls hardware for flight sims has gotten just as complicated and just as realistic. So my museum, or my tech pick this week is going to be one of these. That is going to be... Nope, that is the book. That is the book. Where is... okay, hang on. Hang on, I can fix this. I can fix this, Rich. I know I can. There we go. Here it is. So this was the Logitech Wingman Attack. That was then. Now, if you wanted to buy something for flight or space sim, you could buy something like the X52 Professional Part Metal Throttle and Stick Simulation Controller. So now there's actually a level beyond this specifically for flight sims. I picked this one because this is really good for flight sim games. It's good for space sim games. It can also be used as a general controller for lots of things. There is another level of this. Like, it's an actual flight yoke. It looks like the actual yoke from an airplane. And it has a side sticks, and you can get overhead buttons. And Rich, I tell you, those things get, with the actual yoke and the button, they get crazy, absolutely crazy. But this one is in the realm of crazy. It's $200. But it's got a lot of buttons. It's got the hat. It's got the thrust yoke thing over here on the side. I mean, look how many buttons this has compared. This one was like 4 buttons and a little slider. This thing is like 100 buttons and a screen and dials everywhere.
This is one, because it looks like 2 separate products, but this is all one thing.
Yeah, because if you look at the way flight sims work, there's the stick part, right? But there's also like the thrust, right? So that thing that's on the left here, this guy, this is like the thrust part, which on this old joystick, this part here was taken care of by like this little slider kind of thing. This was like your thrust, right? So this is obviously much more complicated. Yeah. And convoluted. So, imagine you're doing a fighter pilot kind of mode. You're controlling your thrust over here on the side, and you got the hammy, and you got the joystick part here controlling all that kind of stuff. So it's a thing, Rich. It's a thing, but for a very niche audience, I would say. I don't know how widespread flight sims are, but I don't know. You tell me.
No,
you're the one who knows all these people, so
yeah. I don't know if this is just because these are publicity stills or what, but I'm not seeing any cables. Is this all wireless?
Is it? It probably is wireless, I would assume. Yeah, it's probably 2. I don't know for sure, but I can hit specifications, and I bet I could find out. It is stick unit with USB connector cable. No, so it is USB. Okay. They just did not put the cables in the thing. Oh, they got lots of other pictures. I should have probably shown you. Now this is a Logitech brand now. This used to be Cytech, who made a lot of these kinds of things. I assume that Logitech purchased Cytech at some point and rolled it into their own. There's another company that makes really, really cool flight sim kind of stuff like this, and that's Thrustmaster. They have some really crazy ones too. But Logitech also has like the flight yoke, which I can actually show you. But look at this thing, Force 3D. So it's a twist rudder.
Oh wow!
It's got buttons everywhere. I mean, look, advanced adjustment grip. And then software to do that. But I can also show you their specific flight yoke. Look at this. Look at that. That's crazy. Flight yoke system. Look at that. So for those who are looking, if you think of an airplane with like the steering wheel, but it's like the two, it kind of makes like a big U, with the 2 sticks on each side. That is exactly what this is, that you push in and out. So think like real airplane controls. For those who are listening, But it's crazy stuff that they make, for these niche gaming. And then they've also got like a whole bunch of other stuff. So there's like the flight switch panel, the multiple flight panel. So it tells you like altitude, and the games all talk to this stuff. So it's like a real life flight experience. Your rudder controls. Here's an instrument panel. So if you think like on an airplane, Are
they doing VR at all with the flight simulators now?
I didn't see a VR announcement as part of the Microsoft Flight Simulator announcement, but I would assume that is a direction for this category. Now, there's a lot of space sims that do VR, but I don't know specifically about the new Microsoft Flight Simulator. But there's a lot of cool, crazy gaming schemes, and probably some other stuff that we can talk about E3 as some of those games launch. There was one announcement that was worth talking about, is that they're extending the Xbox Live Game Pass to PC. So on PC, Steam really is the 100-pound gorilla. And then there's Uplay, and then there's EA for those titles that they kind of lock to their specific services. But Microsoft is trying to make an impact with the Xbox brand on PC and have a storefront and a service around that. So last year before that, they announced what's called the Xbox Live Game Pass, which gives you access to like 100 or so titles in the Xbox library that you could play on console, that were all part of it. So and I think they would move games in and out of that. So like for this year, you could play blah game for free as part of the Xbox Live Game Pass. It was like $9.99, like $10 a month. Also, now they're making an Xbox Live Game Pass for PC. Also $10 a month, and it'll be a very similar thing. There will be 100-ish game titles that you can download and play through the Xbox app on PC. So it's another storefront, kind of like Steam, and another service, but you can play those games. The bigger one, though, is they're also announcing another Game Pass level called the Xbox Live Ultimate Pass, which this is what most people will buy, which gives you the Xbox Live Pass for your Xbox console, Xbox Live Pass for PC, and Xbox Live Gold for online gaming, all for $15 a month. So that'll probably be where most people go, especially if you tend to game on two platforms. And they're also doing a lot of cool stuff to make your Xbox, stream games to mobile devices and that kind of stuff. That's their play for mobile. So lots of interesting things to talk about that will affect the PC space over time, but not anything overly dramatic. So anyway, that's my museum and tech pick. Sorry, that was a kind of a long one to talk about. So we will wrap it up. Rich, anything else you want to say about? You're going to go buy a flight stick right now, aren't you?
I already have, yeah.
It's in the cart. The yoke with the instrument panel, all coming to you, so you can, because it's not like you don't fly enough, right? So
exactly. That's how I want to spend my leisure time.
It'd be really funny is if you were like sitting in the airplane with your laptop in a flight sim, and you actually brought like your flight yoke, and then we can make people believe that like you're actually flying the plane from the passenger area. Don't piss me off. You better bring me my extra coffee or Coke, because I'm going to take the plane overboard. All right. Cool. So that's it for that, Rich. If you were to preview the past, which you tend to do with stunning accuracy, but also predict the future, what would you do? What would you say?
Essentially, in terms of the past, what I would do is direct you to our In Case You Missed It post, which appears every Friday on ChannelProNetwork.com. It will, I believe, at least appear this week. As you said, it's kind of a light news week, but we do have some stuff up there that our own James Gaskin will be writing about. And it's going to be another light news week next week as well. There are a few things on my radar here that I can't really talk about right now. No big conferences coming up that I'm aware of, but a few news stories that'll break next week that we'll be covering for you on ChannelProNetwork.com.
Fantastic. And if you want to subscribe or follow ChannelPro Weekly and ChannelPro Network. The website is obviously the first destination that you should know about. ChannelProNetwork.com is the website. That is your gateway to news, articles, downloads, white papers, information. You name it, it's there, and it's updated each and every single day, multiple times a day. So tune into that, make that one of your start pages in your web browser, because you'll never know what's there. If you want to subscribe and follow ChannelPro Weekly, Rich and I, as we discuss week to week the top stories and articles and strange things like selling insurance, you can do that in a bunch of different ways. So here on, if you want to watch the video version, you can go to the YouTube channel, to one of the videos. You can subscribe to the channel, and then you have to hit a bell, because in the past, subscribing meant like you would get new things, but now it doesn't mean that. Now you have to hit a bell. So do that, and supposedly you get notifications if we put new shows out. So do that. But if you want to listen to the audio version, which you can find on iTunes, Google Play, Podcasts, Stitcher, pretty much anywhere podcasts can be found, you will find ChannelPro Weekly. And then when you subscribe, then it's great, because shows will just magically appear on your device when you're in the train or in the car or whatever. And Rich and I can be your compadres, your partners, your best friends going down the road to educate you and fill your brain with channel goodness. Right, Rich?
This is what we aim to do.
Right. All of the channel goodness, brain injection. That's our thing. Brain injections. So that sounds so weird. Okay. So definitely do that. If you'd like to follow us on the social networks, we are at ChannelPro SMB on Twitter. We're ChannelPro Network on Facebook. If you want to follow Rich, you are
at Rich Free.
At Rich Free, and I am at Matt Whitlock on Twitter. So if you want to follow me there, if you want to email us, podcast@channelpronetwork.com is our email address. We absolutely want questions, comments, whatever it is, name it. We'll get it on the air. In the past, we've done some prizes and stuff like that. We'll get, as we get back into a more regular rhythm and get people going. We'll have some more prize opportunities and contests and all kinds of fun stuff like that as we go forward. So yeah, Rich, anything else you want to say?
No, that puts a bow on it.
It does. It does put a bow on it. What a fabulous show. Thank you all for listening to episode 109, and we will see you all next week.